Hey guys, question for you. Have you ever gotten into a TV series or a book series and then been completely blindsided by a plot twist? Like everything is just going fine and dandy when all of a sudden, boom, main character dies. Or someone who's really close to them turns out to be a double agent and just stabs everyone in the back. It's times like those where you have to wonder, is this it for the show? Did they just ruin the story? Or is this going to be a moment in the story that helps it to grow and actually makes the show better? You know, those moments are fun to watch on TV, but when they happen in our own lives, it can be a lot different. I remember when I was in 10th grade, I experienced one of these big, life-changing plot twists. Are you ready? I switched schools, and in band class, I was given the third trumpet part. I know, terrible, right? I mean, okay, maybe it's not a big deal to you guys, but to me, it was crushing. See, in school, all the years back between 6th to 9th grade, I was the best in my grade. I was the best trumpet player, and I had wrapped my entire identity as the band kid who was really good at his instrument. I won awards. I got lead parts. I got solos. And so when I switched schools, when I walked into band camp that year, I fully expected to blow everybody away with my awesome skills. And then I sat down in my section and I was given the lowest, easiest, most simple and boring, grueling part that I could have gotten. I mean, I was used to playing the high C's, doo-doo, like that. And now all I hardly ever played was burn, 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 burn. It was terrible. I mean, for real, had I just lost every single ounce of talent and potential over the summer? I remember literally saying to my mom, my life is over. I was 100% sure that because of this plot twist in my life and in band, my high school career was going to be terrible. The truth is, at some point, we've all been there. We've all felt this way. Like some twist in the plot of our lives completely blindsided us, and we don't know where the story's going anymore. Not to be a Debbie Downer or anything, but if you haven't experienced this, you probably will, and you're probably going to have to learn to deal with it in your own lives. I don't know what it is for you guys, but maybe it's a breakup with a friend or changing schools. Maybe you didn't make the part in the play that you really, really, really were going for. Maybe someone close to you dies. Or maybe it's not one specific moment, but instead it's a series of problems and issues that are all related to each other, and it just doesn't seem like there's an end in sight. Financial issues in your family, marital problems with your parents or step-parents. Maybe it's just an argument that you're having with a friend. Maybe it's a failing subject at a school that you just can't get right. Or maybe it's something completely different. I mean, it doesn't have to be Oscar-worthy. It just has to be a disappointment or something that hurts or just a huge letdown. See, when we get into these situations, sometimes we know how to fix them, but often we don't know what to do. And we feel like we're powerless to do anything. Sometimes we deal with it in unhealthy ways that just lead to more problems. It's a miserable place to be, but what other options do we have? When you can't fix the situation, and you can't pretend like you have to be happy about being there, is being miserable our only option? Now, if you felt helpless or hopeless ever, or even if you're feeling like that right now, I want you guys to know it's okay. I mean, we all find ourselves in these situations, and it's healthy and it's okay to be able to process those, to feel bad about it. But here's the thing that we don't want to do. We don't want to get stuck there. We don't want to be focused so intently on what's going wrong in our lives that we forget what's going on behind the scenes. One of the best examples for this is actually a character in the Bible. His name is Paul. We know a lot about Paul. In fact, he's actually the author of a majority of the New Testament. If you've never heard of Paul and you have no idea who I'm talking about, I'll give you a quick summary. Paul went through a massive plot twist in his own life, one that was actually better. See, First of all, I should probably mention this is after Jesus died and was raised back to life. And Paul didn't really like the Jesus followers. He persecuted them. He followed them around, threw them in jail, and even had some of them killed. And then all of a sudden, he encountered the living, breathing person of Jesus Christ. And everything changed for him at that moment. Not only did he become a follower of Jesus himself, but he also became a missionary. And he wrote letters to churches all across the Mediterranean coast. He was one of the most influential people in Christian tradition, and he wrote a majority of the letters that are in the New Testament. Now, becoming a Jesus follower didn't exactly make Paul popular with everybody. In fact, one of his letters was to a group of Christians in the church of Corinth. And this is what he said. Get this. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was pelted with stones. 3 times I was shipwrecked. I spent a night and day in the open sea. Beaten and shipwrecked. That sounds like he's been in all sorts of for lack of a better word, disappointing moments. So when he wrote to his friends at the church in Corinth, I think he's an expert in disappointing moments in lives. He was speaking as someone who had actually encountered this and was encouraging them from that standpoint. And the advice that he gives to the people in Corinth can help you and me as well. So we figure out what to do with situations in our lives that are disappointing, painful, or huge letdowns. And early in the chapter, this is some advice that Paul gives to the church in Corinth. He says, "We are pressed on every side, but not crushed. Perplexed, but not in despair. Struck down, or persecuted, but not abandoned. Struck down, but not destroyed." That's 2 Corinthians 4, 8 through 9. Notice what Paul doesn't say. He doesn't say everything is fine. He doesn't say that being a Jesus follower means your life is going to be easy. No, Paul opens by talking about just how hard life is going to be for him, or how bad life has been for him. And maybe when he talks about it, the way that he says it can resonate with you. He says, maybe you know what it feels like when trouble comes from all angles. Maybe you understand what it means to be confused and in despair. Maybe you know what it means to be knocked down or beaten or persecuted. Sometimes when we experience letdowns in our lives, we feel like it's game over. We make these rash statements like, "My life is done for. I'm never going to get over this. Now I'll never be able to ... fill in the blank." But Paul is saying that just because situations are hard or disappointing, that doesn't mean it's the end. We're pressed, but we're not crushed. You see, we're perplexed or confused, but we're not in despair. We're knocked down, but we're not destroyed. In other words, it may be a plot twist, but that doesn't mean that it's the end. It doesn't mean that it's the end-all, be-all. And just because something is hard doesn't mean that life is bad. It doesn't mean that things can't get better. Now, in such a rough time of life, how can Paul say that? How can he be so sure and hopeful that even though the situation was bad, it wasn't the end? There's a clue in something that Paul says just a little bit later. He says, "So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. Since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal." Paul understood that there's more to the situation than what we could see. He understood that just the situation and the problem that we had before us, that was just a temporary problem. The things that we see and we feel and we experience here in this life, even our own bodies, they're temporary, they'll pass. But Paul gives us this advice. He says, focus on what is unseen. Because what's unseen is how God is working in the background, what God is doing in our lives through these hard situations. You can choose whether to set your mind on what the trouble or the problems are, or you can choose to set your mind on who God is and how God is working in those situations. It's just a matter of focus and attention. And that doesn't mean that we're not going to actually have to deal with the pain that's in our hearts. It doesn't mean we're not going to feel anything. But here's what it does mean. It means that you can have hope. You can have hope that God is strong enough and powerful enough to be able to turn the situation that you're in into something good. You can have hope that even though your plot seems to have taken a turn for the worse, it's something that can grow your story, give you more depth, give you something that gives you a story to be able to talk about later and share your testimony, a way that you can grow as a Christian and spiritually in your trust with God. When you fix your mind on what is unseen, you are able to experience something that led Paul to actually even write this letter, hope. And not just hope that things will get better, but hope that even if things don't get better, it's okay because God's in control of it. Now, when you've experienced these things, it's easy to convince ourselves that we're never going to get over it. Like, this is the end of our lives. And it's okay to kind of feel that way for a while, but I don't want you guys to get stuck there. Just like Paul, you have the chance and the opportunity to be able to choose where you focus your attention. Are you going to focus on what's seen and the problem that you're in, or are you going to focus on how God is going to work in your life through it? So here's what I want you guys to do. When you find yourself in these situations, I want you to focus on these three things. First of all, focus on what you know about God. What have you learned about God, either in studying Scripture or in discussions with your small group or just in your own personal experience? Have you learned that God is loving? Have you learned that God cares for you, that He's kind to you no matter what, that He's powerful and stronger than any situation or enemy that could be against you? When you find yourself in a situation where you feel like you're powerless, it's best to be able to remind yourself of what you know about God. So set those in your reminders in your phone, set those in your calendar, somewhere where you can just see it and be constantly reminded about that. Another thing you can focus on is how you've seen God work already, either in your life or in other people's lives. Have you experienced God working through a difficult situation already? And if so, how can you know that, or is that how you know that you can have faith in God through that? Have you seen God working in another person, and in their life, or in a story? Because the God that we worship together is the same God, no matter what situation we're in, no matter who's in the situation. He pulls through for us, and He's on our side no matter what. And finally, I want you guys to focus on this. How can God use the pain that you're experiencing right now, either in your life or in the world around you? One of the most amazing things about God is that He can turn any situation, no matter how bad it is, into something awesome. So how can God use the pain that you're experiencing now to grow you as a person? How is it going to challenge you, give you a better story, make your faith in God stronger? Or how is what you're experiencing now going to be able to move in the lives of other people in the future? Will you be able to encourage someone in the future? Will you be able to help someone who's in the same situation and help them get through it? And maybe by knowing that God's working in it, that can help you to get the strength to power through the situation that's at hand right now. Listen, I know that this is easier said than done. Trust me, I know myself. But I want you to know that it's important that we do this. And no matter what you believe about God, I know some of you guys might not even know quite what you believe about God, or if you believe at all. But no matter what, God is still for you. He's fighting for you behind the scenes. Whatever situation you're in, God wants to be a part of that, and He wants to help grow you and grow the people around you through that. So I have a challenge for you guys today. When you guys go home, I want you guys to find a quarter. On every quarter, there's the words, "In God we trust." And maybe that's a little bit kind of cheesy or whatever you want to call it, but here's what I want you guys to do. I want you to find a quarter. I want you to put it in your pocket, or put it on your person, put it in the back of your cell phone case, whatever it takes to keep it on you no matter what. Whenever you notice that quarter this week, I want you to just say this: even when there's trouble, I can trust Him. See what happens. Maybe you'll find yourself being able to trust God even when there's a plot twist this week. Even if it's just a little one, maybe just having a token or some sort of a reminder to remind you that you can trust God no matter what will help you to get through that. I hope you guys have a great week. Thanks for being here at Link Groups. We look forward to seeing you, not next week because it's Mother's Day and you're going to be, spend some time with your mamas, but the next week we'll be here at Chapel Point. You guys have a great night. Thank you.